They can't see you yet, but if you could reduce that. Matt, a little more than that, I think. It's just you're very luminescent right
I
now.
got.
You like you're one of the Valar or something.
I am
Which one?
the secret.
Oh, okay.
I'm one of the ones who never came to Earth.
Oh,
I'm that.
you're Omar. You know what? Try it without that light, because you have so much light in the room. That's a lot better. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. It's just too much light. Let me get the okay. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I need to get the YouTube URL and make sure that I can see the YouTube chat. So let me get that. I should have had that ready, but I am like Samwise today. Okay. Oh, okay. I don't need to be hearing myself. I just need the chat. Okay, so we are live. Welcome in to anybody that's already watching. Let me see. Okay, now I can see the chat. And I want to have both chats, though. I think that's going to have to do. Like that. Okay. All right, let me get the announcement out that we're live. Matt, you were saying something right as I was about to go live, but you figured something out.
I know what I'm going to talk about tonight. There was something that happened this week that
okay.
It was just beautiful, magical for me.
That's always good when that happens.
You know what I'm talking about, John.
Yeah. No, I don't actually, but give me a moment to just make the announcement that we're alive. I have really made just a real, just a Shire fire drill of this today. Here we go. Okay. Hey there, to Laurel is in the chat, and Kits, how is it going? You never caught us so early. Hey, Dylan. Okay, let me just finish posting on Discord and everything, and then we'll do. Yeah, everything's going pretty well. Matt and Sid are here with me, of course. Say hi, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, great to be here, everybody.
Yeah, you can't see them yet. They have their rings on, but we'll be taking this off shortly. I'm just trying to discombobulate myself. Recombobulate is what I should say. I'm recombobulating.
I like Gandalf.
How? Okay. Wow, how did this happen again? Matt, Sid, you're still like glowing.
I've turned off. I've only got one tiny light behind me.
No, well, it's not what's behind you. It's whatever's in front of you that's like hitting your face.
Oh, okay. That's my own screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you. Yeah, I noticed. Okay, you probably had like a white like notepad up or something.
Well, I have to have.
Yeah.
That's my script. I'll need it on for 2 minutes when I go.
Okay, that's fine. Well, okay. So the order of things today for everyone that's coming into the chat is that Matt is going to be leading us off, and then I will be going last. So Sid's going to be the meat in a Tolkien sandwich today because meat's back on the menu, boys. By the way, Sid, when I was streaming, I was gaming, and I told that story. I think I was playing the Two Towers video game, and I was talking about because I was fighting one of the Lurts, one of the big Urukai, and I told them that story that you told me about your friend that you asked what was the most inspiring scene in the film, and he said it was meat's back on the menu, boys. Which is like, I can understand if you like the line, it's funny, but it's hardly inspirational, right?
Well, if you kind of think of yourself as an orc, it makes sense.
Yeah. Which
Self-image.
Kits, which question are you referring to? Kits asked, was that question ever answered? Oh, do you mean the question that Sid asked? Well, yeah, if you mean that, then it was answered in a most unsatisfactory way. Just sort of like, I mean, that's sort of weird, right? Like, if what scene in the Lord of the Rings did you find to be the most inspiring? And they tell you, well, I really liked it when Merry and Pippin blew up all the fireworks. You know, it's just weird, right?
I mean, I'm a little worried about what Matt decided to put on his shirt tonight. Maybe we shouldn't listen to his voice.
Yeah, well, you know, he's got the white hand of Saruman there.
There's nothing wrong with my voice.
Was that your Saruman voice? That was very that was very creepy, which is a good thing if you were doing Saruman.
I'm doing the voice of Saruman.
Yeah. Well, nobody could do it quite like Christopher Lee, but yeah. All right, guys.
I have some of my good attempts, though.
All right, let's put us over to here so that everybody can see your lovely faces today. Welcome to the Council of Tolkien. How orcs know about menus? Well, you know, I tried my best, Kits, to try to justify that, to see if I could find some reason that could be justified. So I did a little linguistic delving to see if the word menu was maybe older than we think it is, or if the word menu ever had a different meaning. But apparently it is never meant anything but a selection of food to choose from, specifically in a restaurant. So it was just one of those things that they put in the movie that wasn't exactly the smartest choice, but you know, we like the movies anyway, even warts and all. Hey there, I am the TJR. I'll just call you TJ if you don't mind. How is everybody doing today? And I refer to Matt and Sid as well as the people in the chat.
I'm doing really well, thanks. Glad to be here.
Now, last month we had that great movie discussion, actually, and I'm not planning to talk about anything film related today. I can't know that I would speak for either of the other two, but I did want to give you guys an update because I said that I was going to put up a version of last week's. It's Tyler. Okay, I put up a version of last month's podcast where we would put the pictures of the actors and everything, but I decided that I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is do a shortened video where I summarize our discussions and include pictures of everybody that we decided would be good casting if this mythical event were ever to take place. I just still need some of Sid's choices, but he's working on it. Oh, hey there, Kairuberis, am I saying it right? Welcome in. We have a lot of people that are like, hey, I finally get to be at one of these things. Which is always a fun thing. Okay, so, Matt, you're going to be going first. Let me get my timer up here so I can figure that out. I was also just, if you heard me cursing just before we went live, it was because I was having an issue with Reddit. Their AI seems to think that I'm a problem. I have to.
You are a problem.
Yeah, I know, right? I need to contact Reddit support because it's working on my phone, but it's not working on my browser. And
they're afraid of your human intelligence, John.
Well, you know what happened is, this is nothing Tolkien related, but it's just a frustration that I'm going through. I had made a post on Reddit late last night that their AI detected as being spam, and it got deleted. And I went to the moderators of the space that I posted it and said, hey, through no fault of your own, my post got deleted by the Reddit AI. Could you take a look at that? And it looks like they unblocked it, but now the AI wants to block me from accessing Reddit completely. And I don't know what to do other than contact support at this point. All right, let me get my
Unfortunately,
time.
AI runs Reddit support.
Yeah, well, I hope that's not the case, because that would be terrible. Hey Moogle, dealing with these AI issues is just awful. It makes everything so much more difficult. All right, Matt, you are going to be the first person to go today, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to set yourself up to explain to us what the topic for the next half hour is going to be. Oh, Dutch is in the chat, by the way.
Hey, Dutch.
Well, there's a Dutch. I don't know if it's the Dutch that we know, but this Dutch is that Dutch Patterson there. The Dutch in the chat is actually talking to Matt, saying that you know a lot about logistics, that it's pretty shocking, and just wanted to say thanks for that. So you have a big fan there in the chat, Matt.
Oh, thank you. Who is this?
Well, it's somebody named Dutch, but I'm not sure if it's our Dutch or just somebody who happens to be named Dutch. I don't want to make any.
One of our lore masters? Isn't this Dutch?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, there's more than one person with that name. So before I assume that it's okay, no, it's not the Dutch that we know. That's not Dutch Patterson.
Yeah.
So you have 2 fans named Dutch.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Isn't that great?
You're gonna like my segment if you like that stuff.
Okay, Matt, 2 minutes. Go ahead. Let's see what it is.
Okay. Today we're going to tackle a couple of things about Numenor. I wrote an article on Quora. It's entitled, if anybody wants to read it, it's entitled "How Was Numenor Destroyed?" And the article touched on some really interesting things that I really believe that most people don't really have their mind around very well. And they are basically 2 things. One, what's the height of mental tarma? And there is evidence that can be gathered to give us an idea. And I will give you a hint that Ms. Fonstad is a little bit off. And the second one is the size of the wave that comes in to destroy Numenor. So these are going to be really, I think most people are going to be surprised by the answers for this. So it's going to be a good segment.
You have a whole minute left, unless you're actually done there.
I'm done.
Okay. I was just grabbing the Fall of Numenor here because I thought when we start in earnest, I would like to read a little bit there from the Fall of Numenor. I was just hoping that you would go slightly longer so that I could find the exact...
I can give you 20 more seconds by just saying 2 issues, which is the wave. But you know, this group, I think the audience knows this group, all 3 of us, and a lot of our members on the 9 on Quora here. When we go into a deep dive, we pull from everything there is: letters, appendices, lost tales, as long as it doesn't overwrite anything.
Language journals, in my case.
Language journal, even the meanings of words and things. So, this is one of those, and this is going to be shocking information for some people. But
Zelda Man, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry, Zelda Man. Thank you so much for the tip. You're going to be owed a Steam game, but I'm doing a podcast right now, so just remind me afterwards to get you a game. Okay, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
On this one, I'm looking.
I want to toss a question to you up front. Was Numenor overturned by only a wave, or could the huge earthquake at the other side of the sea?
You know what? Let's actually start the segment before we get into that, because that is the exact point that I was going to make. So let me go ahead and set the timer up for a half hour. And since I'm still finding the exact part that is going to illustrate this point, making my point for me anyway. Sid, go ahead and ask that again.
My question is, did only a wave flow over or overturn Numenor, or did there an undersea earthquake starting at the shores of Elvenhome of Aman reach underneath Numenor and literally, in terms of an earthquake, overturn it or undercut it?
This is exactly what the article is covering, and I guess I'll just get started by addressing that first.
And by the way, the Dutch in the chat is known as the Deceiver on Quora, and I think we're all familiar with that name. I think we've seen that person around. I've answered a few of their questions as well. And hello there, War Master. I think that, I think earthquake and tidal wave is greatly underestimating the raw power of what actually happened in the Akalabeth. I think just saying, "Oh, a big wave came and swallowed up Numenor," or "Oh, the earth shook and it fell into the sea." I mean, we're talking about Iluvatar, God himself with a capital G, coming and cracking the world and reshaping it into a sphere. And I'm looking for the exact passage right now, but
I have it right here.
it actually makes it seem like that like Numenor actually being swallowed up was almost more of a byproduct of what happened, which was a global event.
Yeah. Well, let me read the passage, and then I'll get to the presentation here.
I have the book out here.
Well, I know. Well, let me read it because I've got it. I'm ready to go. And in the end, we're going to have a discussion about where we think all this fits. So, but first, I want to talk about mental tarma because it's the most important thing first, I think. So, mental tarma is the mountain in which they go to 3 times a year on Numenor to pray for Thanksgiving, the harvest, and for the best hopes for the coming year. And that's the Numenorians. And this mountain has to be big enough to be able to see about 500 miles to Tol Eressëa and the Tower of Avallone. And according to the research, even for a flat Earth scenario, which this is, the optics and the sea haze that's normal for this type of atmosphere, which I did research on, considering that Numenorians had better than normal eyesight, which we calculate as somewhere between
they certainly do
25 and 2010 type vision.
Yeah.
That even if you take all those into account, you'd have to be at least at 10,000 feet high or higher to see it. The problem is that this was a mountain where everybody was allowed to go to. So this has to be what you would call a hiking mountain. Now, the issue is that past 12,000 feet, and the Middle Earth world is like our world, according to Tolkien, and the nature of Middle Earth and
literally
other sources.
Is, yeah.
It literally is. That these kinds of altitude problems are not going to make that kind of hike a scalable mountain for the multitudes that Tolkien is very clear that are able to make this, men, women, and children.
Thank you again, Zelda Man, for the tip. Sorry, there's tips coming in. I need to cut in here because for 2 reasons, Matt. One is because I thought you were going to read a passage. I have the. I wanted to.
I am, but that's related to the second issue, which is.
Well, hold on. Let me address the first issue before we even get to the wave, because it doesn't say that you have to be on the mental tarma to see Eressëa from Numenor. It just says that from Numenor on a clear day you could see Tol Eressëa. It doesn't say that you have to be up there.
I also have some good news, folk. The highest mountain in Africa, Kilimanjaro, is walkable by anyone in moderately good shape.
It really does depend on the climate. And Numenor is a very temperate, almost tropical climb.
And as is Kilimanjaro. But the thing is, Kilimanjaro, you can walk. Kilimanjaro is a paved road. You can walk all the way up without climbing at all, and it's over 19,000 feet.
Right. I see. Sorry, Matt. Have you ever played Skyrim?
No.
Okay, there's a mountain there. It's called the Throat of the World, and it's supposed to be the tallest peak in the world. And there are steps going almost all the way to the top. And this is, this sort of like society that I would say is in Middle Earth is closest to something like Rohan. But we're talking about Numenor. They certainly had the ability to pave roads up the mental tarma to make it walkable.
What I'm getting at, though, is that past 12,000 feet, scientifically, the air gets so thin, so rarefied, that people cannot stay up there for very long. And so you have to be under 12,000 feet for people to be up there en masse. Now, the other thing you guys talked about was the vision. Now, the rule of the Valar was that they couldn't be out of the sight of of Numenor.
Hey, WT.
So when they sailed, they were actually able to go quite a ways away from
Well,
Numenor
they went all
on
the
a
way.
flat Earth.
They went all the way to the Burnlands in the uttermost east. You know, and I wrote
They were
about
able
that
to get-
recently.
Yeah, they were able to go pretty
Well,
far and still
Recently,
see,
I mean a few months ago, but you know.
right, in dog
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
So they were able to go pretty far and see Tol Eressëa and the Tower of Avalon by at the tallest mast as far as they could go from there as well. But from the mountain, they needed, for normal people, normal people to be able to see it, who weren't the clearest eyed of the Numenorians. You needed to be up higher to be able to see it, relatively clear on a relatively normal day. So the point is
Well,
that Karen Fonstein has this at 14,000 feet, and I don't believe that's accurate because of the way of all the other weight of evidence. I personally think that it has to be higher than 10,000, and it has to be less than 12 because of those issues.
Yeah.
And that's important because it gets us to our next main topic, which
Okay,
is
wait,
how big was the tidal wave?
let's
Yeah.
let's discuss that. And I want to read
Yeah.
this because I've been holding this book for like 10 minutes now, and I want to put it down.
Okay.
And I want to hear from Sid as well. But like Tolkien definitely makes it seem as if you could just see Eressëa, just make it out from the shores of Numenor, not from the peak of the Meneltarma. And as for the height of the mountain, I don't think that we need to worry too much about the air being very thin at the very peak, because these sort of religious ceremonies that happened where they would go up and they would meet with the great eagles and they would pray to the one and everything, that doesn't need to be at the very summit of the mountain. That could be halfway up for all we know.
No, it is from
But-
the highest peak. It is
But
from
I'm
the very
also
highest plateau.
I'm also going to back up something that Sid said about it being walkable, because what happens when Numenor starts to sink is Tarmiriel runs up the mountain.
Yeah.
But let me
Which leads
just
us.
let me just read
Okay, go
this
ahead.
one little paragraph here, because this is what I'm referring to here. In an hour unlooked for by men this doom befell, on the 39th day since the passing of the fleets. Then suddenly fire burst from the Meneltarma, and there came a mighty wind and a tumult of the earth, and the sky reeled, and the hills slid, and Numenor went down into the sea, with all its children and its wives and its maiden and its ladies proud, and all its garden and its halls and its towers, its tombs and its riches, and its jewels and its webs and its things painted and carven, and its laughter and its mirth and its music, its wisdom and its lore, they vanished forever. And last of all the mounting wave, green and cold, that plumed with foam, climbing over the land, took to its bosom Tarmiriel the queen, fairer than silver or ivory or pearls. Too late she strove to ascend the steep ways of the Meneltarma to the holy place, for the waters overtook her, and her cry was lost in the roaring of the wind. Not that...
Could you read the first?
Oh,
Could you read the first of that again? There was something very particular, and I want to catch.
Oh no, I just closed it. Give me a moment to find that again.
Well, while he's finding that, I want to talk about the passage that's very short that answers Sid's earlier question. And that's what's going on in Numenor after half of the fleet has landed and taken up camp in Valinor during the invasion. It says here, and a great chasm opened up in the sea between Numenor and the Deathless Lands.
Yes.
And the water flowed down into it. And the noise and the smoke of the cataracts went up to heaven, and the world was shaken. And all of the fleets of the Numenorians were drawn down into the abyss, and they were drowned and swallowed up forever. So these are two different events, and they're 500 miles away from each other.
Sid, you wanted me to read the first part again?
Yeah, about 3 lines in. I'll say stop when I hear.
Okay, sure. In an hour unlooked for by men this doom befell, on the 39th day since the passing of the fleets. Then suddenly fire burst from the Meneltarma, And there came a mighty wind and a tumult of the earth. And the sky reeled and the hills slid and Numenor went down into the sea.
Good enough.
Okay.
Fire revealed. It sounds like part of this was even a volcano.
Well,
in Eltarma.
I don't think it necessarily. I mean, it could be, but I think what we're seeing here is if you think of the physical reality of this, of God reaching down and cracking the earth, you're going to get that geothermal rush wherever these cracks appear, and we also see it. Tolkien using fire bursting out of the earth as just this description of great destructive force, like when Fingolfin went and challenged Morgoth, and every time Grond, the hammer of the underworld, came down and smote the earth, there was fire that came out of it.
Yeah, and that also relates to the nature of Balrogs, which are fire under the earth volcanoes. And it relates to something Tolkien works with of the fundamental elements. The Silmarillions one ends up under the earth, one's up under the sea, and one's end up in the airs of the high heavens. So there's an earth, fire, and air mix in all of these stories.
Okay. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to bring up the size was that people often, including I would say probably half of the lore artists out there, describe this massive wave coming that Eru makes, that it comes across and is high as the top of Meneltarma. Now, I believe there's more evidence than not that this is more like 11,000 feet than 14. That's a small point. That's fine. But the issue is that was it actually a wave? And I want to point out that not only are these two events different, which I just read the passage, but the one that John just read, the key point to me is, and Numenor went down into the sea.
It's falling, and the water is rushing in to fill that void.
Exactly. So the count is being partly narrative, obviously, but it's also partly from Queen Muriel's point of view. Now, when land moves down like this, there's three things that cause waves like this for you guys to know.
Before you continue, I just want to back up what you're saying as well. There's actually also a third perspective, because one is Pharazôn's perspective, which is the one you read, and I read Muriel's. There's also Sauron's perspective of him sitting on the throne in the Temple of Melkor and falling into the abyss and laughing.
We'll cover that last if you don't.
We'll cover that. Go ahead. I just want to bring up that there are three passages that describe a Kolobeth centralized around Numenor, and they all involve falling into the earth.
Yeah, and this part of the Silmarillion is just full of the greatest stuff. So there's three things that can cause this: an asteroid, a crustal displacement, or C, an inverted superlateral landslide. Now, going back to the question for Sid, is that in Valinor, it is a superlateral landslide under at the base of the sea that opens up a cavern, a cataract, and at the same time another lateral landslide that swallows up half of the army that's already encamped near Tuna. Now, these events are just landslides, and they suck down the fleet and they bury the army that's ashore. Half of the Navy is still on these ships because they had just disembarked. So the nature of this is that these sailors are probably still, half of them are still on board, and they're also destroyed in that going down. But what we have in Numenor itself is what's called crustal displacement, when Eru decides to change the fashion of the world and bends it to do that. Now, a crustal displacement of this size is bigger than any kind of earthquake. And what Muriel is experiencing is it looks to be like waves coming in. It looks to be like a massive waves coming in. And because the ground is shaking...
That's the perception. Yeah.
Bingo. And as it's sinking and going down, the waves are rushing in over the top, and it looks to be like these huge waves are coming, these huge massive tidal waves, and all they are is waves that you would see at the beach the previous day. In other words, the level,
walls of water almost,
walls of water flooding in, exactly, but not from a wave. necessarily like a type
It's
from
almost like a
tsunami.
whirlpool, I think is the word we're struggling to find.
Well, it's actually described as a maelstrom. A
Maelstrom.
maelstrom is it's being sucked down, and the water that's regathering itself around what's missing now, which is the whole
Yeah.
island of Numenor, which is a star-shaped island about the same area
Well,
of the state of
it's not
California.
just Numenor. It's like the whole area between Numenor and the Undying, which the Undying Lands are also being lifted up. So there's displacement there as well because
Right,
the
right.
Undying Lands are being separated. Sid has
So
something to say, but before that, I also
hold
wanted
on.
to point out that I have a friend who's a geologist, and I'm gonna have to send this to her to see if we can get her thoughts on it. But
Okay,
Sid
real
had
quick though, Sid. I know, real quick. The idea
Uh,
here is that the California, I mean, Numenor is the size of California, and it is sinking into the ocean, and the regathering water is the actual wave, but the water level has not gone up.
yeah, it's and this is similar to a tsunami where there's an underwater shift from an earthquake, and the water that comes is a shock wave of water. But this is way bigger than any tsunami we've ever seen on Earth. That's one of my points. The other is in terms of was the Earth originally flat and made round at this moment? Tolkien believed that for a number of years. At the very end, he changed his mind. So we have multiple accounts we can work with. But I like the idea of the world becoming round, and I'll tell you why and give you something fun to look at. There's some evidence that back in Middle Earth, during the earlier wars with Sauron, the Entwives got to went east, and Tolkien figured they probably all got killed off. But if the world became round, they had another way home. And if you want to read a delightful story about that, go to my archive of our own and read
Yes.
The Return of the Entwives and how they got home because the world turned round.
You see why I'm smiling is because as soon as Sid said Entwives, I'm like, I know this is going to tie into his story. But Tolkien's belief was that he was trying to reconcile real geologic history with his fictional geologic history. And you could read about this in the book Morgoth's Ring in the section called Myths Transformed, where he really felt it was necessary to try to say that was the world flat? The elves thought so. The elves believed this. But I think we almost don't have the time to get into like, well, what is the Akalabeth then if the world was always round?
Well,
And
let me put
that's
in
a
a pitch for
completely
put a pitch for what I think is going on metaphysically and philosophically for Tolkien.
yeah.
I've researched this, written about this too. He didn't like that idea because he liked he kind of gravitated toward the idea that the world was only flat in the minds of human beings up to a certain point in their awareness of the universe, and that it became round. It was always round, but it became round to them, which is basically the recognition of reality. And the recognition of reality at that point in some span of our development and awareness was symbolized by this moment where we realized that the world was round. Obviously, it 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 was flat to us, and because our perception is reality, he's saying that it was always flat to us until it was proven to be round. And he's encapsulating this advance of our anthropological understanding of the world around us and putting that in there in a really metaphoric, beautiful way in a lot of ways, I think. And came to settle on the later point, which is it was always round. And I think that's what he's trying to do here. And I've come down on that side of it in my own mind.
When we get into Myths Transformed, we have to sort of like check ourselves, because then we start to say, okay, well then the two trees never existed. You know what I mean? And then you have to like and he said in his notes, this whole idea is incredibly destructive but also necessary. But unfortunately he didn't get very far with this line of thinking because he died. Um, and I'm
Well,
going to recommend the story, read Leaf by Nigel to sort of get his thoughts on it, because Nigel was somebody who had this painting that he never finished and that he continually was trying to rework and change. And then he dies, and he goes to live in the painting.
Remind me what the relationship is between the two trees not existing at all and the world being made round at the time that Numenor is destroyed.
Well, it's not an exact. That was just two of his ideas, because he also said that the sun and the moon are real celestial bodies. They have existed. And there's support for this in the Silmarillion, because Durin the Deathless sees the moon. And it was a time when there wasn't a moon, according to the elves. So what we have here is we have elvish belief, and we have dwarvish belief, and we have mortal belief, and they all don't agree with each other. And Tolkien was like, hey, the real truth is way crazier. Angband was on the moon, all this stuff, but he never got to write any stories in that vein. Sid, go ahead.
I have 2 points, each brief. One is that if we're going to talk about the reshaping of space, we also have to look at time. And
that's my topic, by the way.
But when we look at time, Tolkien's use of the word age include geological ages, mythological ages, which can be far older than geological ages, and legendary ages, and historical ages, which are 4 different concepts to us, and he overlaps them early on. And I think this is part of what he was trying to straighten out. But also, when a very wise person is near death, they often feel they have to fix and reorganize a whole bunch of things. And that may actually sometimes undercut their creativity.
And you're right. You're right. And Matt said something to me about this once. I'm going to come. I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. And if we see that happening, we are free to pick the story we prefer.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally like the idea that the world was flat. In fact, it was shaped like a ship on a vast ocean and became round.
No, I think you're 100% on the nose there.
And geologically, even if the world was always round, a continent the size of North America got plucked up out of it and put into outer space.
Yeah. No, that's and then you have to say, like, well, is Earendel really up there, or is that just Venus that we're seeing? It's a whole discussion, and I like it because, like, that was Tolkien's intention, that we look at these things and we do, like, okay, do you like the way that the Silmarillion tells it, or do you like what Morgoth's Ring has to say, or do you like even the Book of Lost Tales is valid in its own way? There isn't a canon in Tolkien. There's just his ever-changing mind and how we choose to interpret it and which stories we like. It's like the Arthurian legends. They don't have to agree with each other. It just, like I said, I don't like to get too caught up in myths transform, because it's incredibly, like he said, it's destructive, and you start to really second guess every single little tiny thing. Matt said something to me once about, confusticate. Oh man, what was it, Sid? You were saying something, and then I was like, oh yes, you're right, but then you needed to finish, and now I've lost the thought. There was something.
Sorry.
There was something that Matt. About Tolkien's attitudes as being a very wise individual who is coming close to the end of his life, and it's not like he really knew that he was going to die. I mean, he wrote a letter to his daughter 4 days before he died, just talking about minutia, like eating curry and getting a haircut. But his wife had just died, and he was very in a state of mourning, and I think that, like, when he wrote a lot of that stuff that we see in the very late era, he's almost like, people on Quora say like, that just sucks the magic out of it if the world was not reshaped by a Iluvatar, and there never was 2 lamps, and there never was 2 trees. Well, what does the white tree of Gondor even represent at that point?
This is why. Hold on. This is
Go
why,
ahead, Matt.
in the very end, when he decided to settle on the fact that this was always round, he left the door open for us to re-engage and be in touch with
Hey, Matt.
the varying oral traditions that we at one time were cave people and thought that lightning was because
This,
Zeus was upset with
yeah.
something, I mean, and so he's trying to get back into that kind of lore about perceptions, human, ancient, anthropologically ignorant perceptions about the world. And at some point, it became round only because it became round in our actual awareness, which happened around the year 1100. I know people proved it was mathematically round before then, but if you look at the history of it, it wasn't until about 1100 that everyone started going, okay, I think I get it now. It wasn't really ultimately
Hey,
accepted
Tommy.
until about the 11th century.
Actually, no.
Um,
The Greeks fully knew the world was round and how large it was, 24,000 miles around, and
So did the
8,000.
Egyptians.
And
yes, but half the Spaniards thought they were going to fall off the table of the earth in 1300.
lost it.
That's kind of an old
That,
wives' tale. That wasn't really a.
my point is, we lost that after Rome fell. In 1100, when we received books that were lost in the burning of the Library of Alexandria because copies had gone through the Muslim countries and were being translated out of ancient Greek into Arabic languages into Latin, we regained the knowledge that was very solid in ancient Greece, well, specifically ancient Greece, as in we know the names of the people who did those measurements. We just lost that fact for over 1,000 years.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, even the navigational instruments that were used in ancient times were all
Yeah.
assuming a round Earth. There's more
Yeah.
people that believe the Earth is flat now than in the entirety of the past, which is, that's just wild, but that's how people are.
Let me touch. Let me
We have
let me
2
go back to
minutes here,
something.
by the way. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, that's fine. Let me go back to something real quick. Um, that we didn't really touch and really conclude on, which I think with the three of us, I'd like us to kind of come to some conclusion, and that is the displacement in Valinor, the crust hole displacement, and the opening of the cataracts. We know that that didn't cause a wave that reached Valinor because we've just agreed that the reading is that Numenor sank. It was not overcome
Mhm.
by a wave. So they are two unique, different events in two different parts, and they are not related. That's kind of a big aha moment in lore, in my opinion.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
Yeah.
the type of tidal wave that could overcome and destroy an island nation, Tolkien's Atlantis, would have had an effect on more than just Numenor. It
Yeah.
it, it would have kept going. It would have hit the burnt lands really hard. But
Mm,
I think that, like I said,
good.
it's the opposite is what's happening, because Numenor is going down into the abyss, but also like, um, we talked about um, the Undying Lands, which is primarily a continent called Amon and some surrounding islands, being roughly the size of North America. It's a different shape. It's shaped kind of like a banana. But this whole thing is being scooped out of the earth, and actually all the water is going to have to rush in there. And it's actually going to overall probably lower the global sea level.
Unless
Boy,
there's
that
a
just
huge rising of Earth as well.
Absolutely. And that's very possible. That's as absolutely a possibility as well. But it's going to be like a lot of churning and craziness that's going to create crazy weather patterns all over the world, which
You
it
mean like
did.
now?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well,
If we're near the,
we're at 10
I'd like to.
seconds. Go ahead, Sid. I'm just going to stop it
I
here.
have, I have two final things I'd like to say. One is back to another fanfic. AR on my archive of our own put a link into Arendel's star. What is the true nature of Venus even now? And that's a 5 or 10 part series story that I wrote. And the other is simply I'm willing to allow some magic during the heights of Numenor, and I believe that the Valar could easily have increased air pressure at altitude to make it possible for people to walk up and such. So I'm open to just the magical nature of the land to avoid some of these technical problems. And lastly, an alternative as we address all of this. This is because of these types of issues. That's why I write fanfic, as Tolkien encouraged us to do, to extend the sub-creation he created into our own imaginative truth in a way that works for us. I encourage people to, and Matt, no criticism, I think the scientific stuff you do is great. And as individuals, we can play with what we like best. And
Yeah.
I think both ways working with Tolkien are absolutely beautiful.
And I, and that's why it's so great that there's the three of us with the three different specialties with Sid. I mean, and not that we stay in our lanes because we go all over the place, but where we're at our strongest, Sid with the spiritual stuff, me with the language stuff, and Matt with the practical stuff. Because like when those sort of questions comes in, how tall was this? How deep is that? How wide is this? I'm just like, oh man, I don't care, like, let me just send this to Matt. He'll do a great job at it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's happened where people have asked me questions on Quora and I just hit that request answer button and put Matt's name in because it's something that just doesn't interest me, but he's going to have a field day with.
Well, before we move segments, let me say one thing about that.
Go ahead.
Because Tolkien was so detailed in so much of what he wrote, and people like us go out and research this stuff, and we have, some people look at 3 or 4, but on some of this, a lot of this stuff, there's 10 or 12, different references. It starts to paint a picture of what Tolkien is seeing in his mind's eye. So yes, it might be me figuring things out in my own, but I'm deducing things from what he's actually describing and trying to get a vision of what he is actually talking about, and that's what's really cool.
What's really wild is that we talk about these specialties of you with, I don't want to boil it down to measurements. That's why I usually say practical concerns, and May with language, and Sid with spirituality. Is that Tolkien was doing all three all the time,
Yeah,
and that's a level of genius that is just crazy.
I would add a fourth, which is creativity.
Oh, absolutely.
I consider spirituality and creativity to be two separate realms. And
but I think we all go into the creative realm. I mean, I think all three of us do in our own way. I mean, like, even though, yes, Matt's talking about a lot of stuff that's like scientific, and we were just going into geological stuff, and I'm definitely going to have to send this to my friend Elise, who is a geologist, and to see if we could maybe get her perspective as well. After the fact, but it takes creativity to interpret this stuff and to come up with it. It's like, don't let anybody tell you Matt's not creative is what I'm saying.
Well, hey, when you reach
and I wasn't saying that you're saying that, Sid. I was just saying that don't let anybody on Quora say that.
No. I got it. But I just want to be clear. I'm specifically encouraging people to read and write fanfic as another way to approach. In addition to spiritual, there's fanfic, spiritual,
subcreation,
linguistic, and analytic, mechanical. All four are part of, as you put it, John, what Tolkien did all the time.
Yeah.
And we're like three guys driving bumper cars, mostly in our own. Except
do we have the little hats, the fez?
John, when you ask this, when you talk to her, would you, from my perspective, would you ask her this specific question, which is,
you're asking it right now because I'm just going to send her the video.
Crustal displacement that involves the sinking of a continent. I'd like to know what's happening at the crustal level that allows that much movement of Earth to go downward. And my other point is, it would be cool if we all had faction t-shirts, because I sometimes wear my Orthanc t-shirt, and I think you guys should maybe get a t-shirt from wherever you guys want to. It'd be kind of fun.
I don't know what I usually try to wear something that's going to show up well on camera. That's my only concern. I have some green shirts that I can't wear anymore. Anyway, that brings us over to my...
Well, my only rule is,
okay,
if it has words on it, don't flip your camera.
Exactly.
John,
Exactly.
John, I got a recommendation for you. Try to find a velvet red vest. It'd be perfect.
A velvet red vest.
Yeah.
I don't think so, man. I don't think
No,
so
come
at
on,
all.
man.
I'm not pulling that
Oh.
off. Okay, let me give myself 2 minutes here to introduce the second segment, which is my segment. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm going last. My bad. I just got excited because because Sid segued me by mentioning time. I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
time. It's Sid. You mentioned something about Gandalf. Let me give you the 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Or are you sure you want to go? I'll switch with you if you want. You want to keep
I
going
actually,
on this?
I would like to go just because, if you don't mind, just because you set me up so perfectly.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So from space to time, John, go.
Okay, so Sid mentioned time, and time is a really interesting thing because there is something in the legendarium called the Count of Time, which is basically meaning where we started to keep track of years, days, months, hours. And this actually didn't start until the creation of the two trees of Valinor. And yes, we are assuming that they did exist and it's not some just elvish myth. So what happened before that? I got a few questions recently that set me up to go down this route. One was, are the Ainur, the angels, the creations like Valar and the Maiar, are they millions of years old? And I could only say that there was a point in time where they didn't have any idea about time because they literally lived in a place known as the Timeless Halls, and that even after the creation of the world, after the Ainulindala and the creation event happens, it still took them a while to figure out time, because time is two things. It's not just as simple as that. In one sense, it's a way of keeping track of events and dates and milestones and anniversaries and things like that. And in another, it's a measurement of decay and entropy and change. And when we have these beings that are God and the angels, they don't have any concept of things breaking down and changing because it doesn't happen to them. And it actually takes them quite a long time within the circles of the world to even understand what time and decay and entropy are. That's my 2 minutes there. So let me just set this up for a half hour.
Can I say one thing about that real quick, John?
Sid, you had your hand up first. Go ahead, and then Matt.
Give it to Matt if he has one thing.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
It's only one thing. Timeless Hall is true. During the time of the days before days, and yeah, so that's a good.
The days,
topic.
and even like the spring of Arda. Somebody asked me, well, what was the time that Sauron joined Melkor? And I looked into it. It was during the spring of Arda. The spring of Arda was 30,000 years long. The book makes it seem like it went by like that because to these beings it did, but to us it was 30,000 years. Even the elves would say that's a long time. Sid?
Yeah.
Yeah, this also relates to what I was talking about earlier about types of ages. And if you look at what the Valar actually did, when Morgoth first broke off and tried to destroy everything they built, that is described in geologic time. Aule raised mountains, Morgoth sunk them under the sea or blew them up, Aule raised them again. That's the geological history over the course of billions of years of Earth before,
Before the spring of Arda, even, yeah.
You're right. Before what you say, before life other than angels arose on Earth.
Yeah, because what was in the Earth? It was empty when they got here. It was them and Tom Bombadil, and that's it. I mean, there's nothing else going on. But here's the interesting thing, and this is where it becomes tricky because they do sort of have some idea of the linearity. Perhaps they don't understand time, but they have some idea of linearity. Iluvatar, I believe, doesn't see time in a linear fashion. However, there's music. And for there to be music, there needs to be linearity because there's 3 movements in the Ainulindala. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. It's something that starts and stops. They understand that. but they don't. So they understand time in one concept, but they don't really get age and death and decay and entropy. They do eventually when they create the sun and the moon. I think that's when they start to see it from a little bit almost like a mortal perspective, and we get three perspectives on time, just like there are three movements in the Ainu Lindala. We get the angelic perspective, where the geological rising and falling of everything, billions of years of history, can happen in a paragraph, and to them it's just like a war they had. And then that's the angelic, or we would say the divine perspective. Then they create the trees, and suddenly we have the elvish perspective. The days are long, the years are long, the seasons are long. Everything goes by very slowly until Melkor comes and screws it all up. And then we have the mortal perspective, which is where
let me touch
everything goes by
on
much
what's
more
going on
quickly.
there. Let me touch on what's going on there
Go ahead.
philosophically for our listeners. So there's a theory, a Greek theory, that's called the unmoved mover theory, which basically is a way of understanding time in physics, in quantum theory, which is that where clocks don't exist, where time is not something that is calibrated, is known and cared about. The universe doesn't need human time, doesn't need sunrises, sunsets. It does what it does. It doesn't need physics. It runs on its own. The point is that the unmoved mover theory is moment to moment. In other words, linear progression of things done. There's this, then there's that, then there's that, then there's that, and this is obviously linear, but when you are only keeping track of from this to that, from this to that, and there is no time, then all of a sudden when there is time, some kind of measurement of something, it only then is put into stark relief of what there was before that. This is why you can go 30,000 years and have the Valar go 30,000 years to who? I mean, what? I don't even know what you're measuring.
What is a year? Right there,
we take our own time. Exactly. I mean, a year in our solar system is not what it is on planet X59. It doesn't have any meaning anywhere else in the universe except for humans who have made this construct. So that's all I wanted to interject.
I'm gonna go over to Sid because he has something to say, but I also have a question for Sid.
I'll roll it into what?
Yes, because you and because this is why you set me up so beautifully, because you talked about the different meanings of ages and all the different ones. Now, of course, we're very familiar with historical ages: the first age, the second age, the third age, the fourth age, right? During after the Spring of Arda, and there was the awakening of the elves, and these always coincides because the awakening of the elves coincides with the second War of the Valar. The awakening of men coincides with the sun and the moon, and this is why we start to see these shifts in how the Ainur start to perceive time. But they chain Melkor, and they put him in Mandos for 3 ages. And then he comes out sometime during what we call the first age. So what are they talking about? Which type of age are they talking about when they say your sentence is 3 ages?
I haven't thought about that, but back me up on a little bit. The war in which Aule raised mountains and Melkor Morgoth threw them down, was that before he was thrown in prison for 3 ages?
Yes, way before. Yeah.
Okay. Then
he was thrown in prison for 3 ages for corrupting the elves and doing all that stuff.
Got it. So what I want to do is look at this from a psychological, experiential perspective. And I think I mentioned one earlier step that, John, you mentioned it also, but I'd like to try to put it together. When angelic beings are purely timeless, they have moment by moment experience, or they couldn't be musicians in an orchestra. And Matt got that dead on straight. After that, while they're still, before they come down to Arda, and when they come down to Arda, they are still essentially timeless. But I think the first thing that changes that is when Morgoth attacks their creations.
Because they're seeing entropy in real time.
Exactly. So entropy comes, entropy, knowing of destruction and that things break down, arrives before a sense of cyclic time. Then we have 3 different periods of cyclic time. The first, you asked a question, I think, we don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, an age is in Tolkien is absolutely a time cycle. And it replays, it's like, I compare it to turning a symphony into an opera on stage. And the Ainu Lindali is replayed in every age. But we don't have a description of those ages because they were in eternal Valar time, and we can't conceive of that. The story never got told, so it never got written into the Red Book of West.
It was
all we have.
It was something that they all understood. They said 3 ages, and this is the elves telling the story. So it's also from their perspective and their translations of Valoran and everything. And like the Valar had their own years and their own days and their own hours and everything that the elves barely understood. I think the only one that came close is Feanor, and then he wasn't on good terms with them, so he didn't share a lot of the knowledge that he had of the Valar. But
exactly. So it's like, what did the ancient Greeks remember of the world before them? Mm-hmm. What did the writers of the Vedas think of the world? That we're going that far back, and it that kind of experience is beyond memory. Therefore, it's thoroughly speculative. But what we can say is that it went from experience as timeless, except in the sense of music, and then it was experienced as falling into destruction and re-arising. So decay was their first sense of anything like we would call time. And then it got into cycles, and we have the Valinorian years that were 144 years long. And when we say X years passed, wait, which type of years?
Yeah,
and it gets really complicated.
And Tolkien even wavered on that. Was it 144 years, or was it like 8.5? That was something that he absolutely did.
He did not settle on 144.
Didn't say that. I said he wavered.
He wavered and did not come down on 144. He came down on
8.5.
9.5826, which is the British 9 5/8.
Okay.
No, it was
so it's 9. But like I said, but then later on he still said, well, what if it was like way longer?
Yeah.
He was going back and forth, like that's Tolkien. He goes back and forth on things.
Now, what's interesting about 9 and 5/8 is this is a very English term. 9 and 5/8 is a very, very traditional measurement for the English, and the 9 and 5/8 terminology is what actually, when you measure out the years and divide by that, is what the actual translation rate is. And he settled on that. Yes. Okay.
Good. But that, like I said, I didn't say that he settled on it. I said he was wavering around because he started with 144.
But for the listeners, I hear you. I'm sorry, John. Didn't mean to say that. What I meant to say is that he did settle on that, and for the audience, what that means is a Valian year is actually 9.5826 sun years.
Yeah. And the sun year is even sort of like difficult to exactly nail down because of the way that we count days. We wind up with leap years, and it's very complicated. Although he took all that into account, and all of the different calendars had leap years, and the way they would handle it so that the seasons wouldn't slide around too much.
That's right.
But going back to sort of like what Sid was talking about, there's also the perception of time, and this is a big thing because it doesn't just happen to the angels. They don't just learn how to appreciate time because they don't understand mortals at all until like the Fourth Age, when they start inviting a few of them over, Frodo and Bilbo and Gimli and Sam. But also, like, we see the elves, particularly Galadriel, setting up Lothlorien. She has this ring of power, and she uses it to create something in Middle-earth that is like the Undying Lands, where time does pass. There are days, there are nights, there are weeks, there are years, there are seasons. Legolas gives us great detail about what the seasons are like in Lothlorien and how they differ from everything else. the Fellowship spends a month in Lothlorien, and when they come out of it, Sam's like, I thought we were only there for 4 days.
And there's, but now imagine both Galadriel and Gandalf having those experiences in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And Gandalf in particular living in a human body, coming back and trying to explain human time to
that's that you got to write that fan fiction, Sid. I want to hear Gandalf telling, Yavanna or any of them, just like, and then you have to go to the bathroom like every day, and you have to eat like all the time. Well, and and you get tired, and it's a whole thing, like
I wrote an article. I should do this on the next show. In fact, John, don't let me forget to do this. Okay, we're going to cover it next show.
Okay,
it's massive. Okay, I wrote an article and proved that when Sam went to the Undying Lands, Frodo was already dead.
Yeah, I mean that's. I don't agree with that.
Nope,
I don't.
Okay.
I don't agree with that. We'll have to talk about it next month because it's not want. It's just mathematically, it was very likely that he was probably like the same
rate
sort of like the same age that Bilbo was,
He yes, but when you go back to the Undying Lands, the conversion goes faster.
This is next month, guys.
But but wait a minute. Actually, you said something. You said something that goes to this month. And that is time does not literally pass faster in the Undying Lands. It's the perception of time that passes faster in the Undying Lands.
No, sorry.
That's what Tolkien said.
No, I know, but
he used Sam as an example here because this is just what I was just talking about. Because he did have the idea once that in places like Lothlorien and like Aemon, that time was sort of at a standstill or that it passed at a different rate. But then he settled on it's actually the way that we perceive it when Numenor. We're going back to Numenor now. All three of our topics are going to be intertwined here, especially since I mentioned Gandalf, and I know that Sid has something to do with Gandalf. But the Numenorians were told, "Why do you want to come to the Undying Lands? Your lives are just going to go by all that much faster." And that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that they're literally going to die faster. That's not a thing.
The passage says that their lives would go by as a moth to flame.
Yes, I'm aware of what the passage says. It is a metaphor. It is 100% a metaphor. Hold on, because Tolkien talked about this. Tolkien talked about this. It is a metaphor because it's like Sam. He thought he was in Lothlorien for he could only remember 4 days out of 30. It went by like that. He didn't understand why the moon was the same.
But if you do the calculation of what Valinor is in Middle Earth as it's trying to be reproduced, and you do the division of those 30 days divided by 9.5826, it comes out to exactly the days that it felt like it passed. And when you do the same thing and you go back to Valinor, okay.
Hold on. Save some of this for next month. But I'm saying that it doesn't speed up. It's just that it seems to go faster. They really did spend a month in Lothlorien. It wasn't 4 days. A month passed.
It's a time. Yes, but it's a time. It's a time crunch.
It's not.
But now, again, next month, guys.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more next month. But but like I said, this is all about the perception of time, and that literally is my topic. And it is that Sam perceived that it all went by very quickly. That doesn't mean that it literally went by quickly. It's just that that's what it felt like to him. And we experience this in our own lives because there was a time when a year seemed to just stretch on forever. And you think back to when you were a little kid, when you were 8 years old, a year was an eighth of your life. So of course it seemed like it was forever. It was an eighth of your life. Now, okay, I'm 45. It's a 45th of my life. That's tiny. It goes by pretty quick. It doesn't mean that time is literally going faster, but it is about perception of time. And I think that that's really interesting that, okay, time is also consequence. We have to talk about that. Time is also consequence. This goes a little bit into the entropy discussion, but it's also actions and consequences, because they come in a certain order. First, there's the action, and then there's the consequence, and we see this with Iluvatar, practically page 1. It might be page 2 of the Silmarillion, telling Melkor what the consequences of his actions are going to be. And then the question then becomes, does Melkor not believe it? Or does he think he can overcome it? Or does he simply not understand consequence?
Or has he fallen into denial? I got to add a fourth possibility.
That's an absolute possibility as well. And I think, personally, it's a little bit of those last two, that he doesn't really understand consequence, and he's in denial as well. He wants to be God, and he's upset that he's not. So, and he thinks that because he's the most powerful person within the circles of the world, that puts him in charge and that he can do whatever he wants. And it's kind of messed up what he wants to do too, because then when you look at what he wants to do, it's not great. He doesn't have great ambitions. He's a pretty messed up guy. He just wants to ruin everything. Because
can I try to discuss real quick about the nature of what the elves perceive to be an age? If we take the age of the first age, which was 589 years.
Nope, not true. That's just the years of the sun. The first age also includes the years of the trees.
I know.
This is this month, Sid. This is this month.
No, I'm not talking about next month. What I'm talking about is this segment we're talking about here, about the elves' perception of an age. When the sun and the moon rise, and Morgoth is then defeated in the War of Wrath, this is 589 years. So I'm wondering if you guys think that the perception of the elves and ages might be from what they knew at that particular time, which is an age is about, I don't know, 500-600 years, and that means that from their interpretation on how.
Okay, and that's why they wrote it that way. I mean,
I'm going somewhere with this. Hold on. That oh my gosh, my hand matches perfectly.
It does. Anyway, it does. Every time you hold up your hand, I'm like, look at that.
Anyway, that maybe what they're thinking is how it was explained to them by anybody that they knew, the Vanyar elves or anybody else, was that this period of time is long. It's kind of like this amount of time to you guys, kind of thing. But if that's the case, and it's 1,000 years is an age, to make it 3,000 years because 3 ages, or an age is 3,000 years, like it is in the second age and the third age, or it's measured by 500 or 600 years from the first age, and that means it's about 1,500 years. That means that any way you slice that and convert it down, Melkor was not held very long.
Well, he wasn't. But the Valar were like so forgiving, and that's a different topic altogether. But I'm glad I have to just say the first age is not just that 500 years. It includes the years of the trees. That's incredibly important to note. And the years of the trees, that's a really long time period, because those were 9 and 5
I know that.
Wait, let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying. But you brought up an important topic of the elvish perspective. However, I'm going to point out that what we're really getting into then, and this is a topic that I've researched and talked about a lot on Quora, is calendars. And it is who decides when is the end of an age. It's really just the people making the calendars. And it always coincides with the fall of a great evil. The first age definitively ended with the War of Wrath. The second age ended not with the Akalabeth, which is what you think, this giant, we just talked about this giant cataclysmic literally world-shattering event. That didn't end the second age. It kept going until Sauron was defeated. And then the third age, once again. And then there was even disagreements. When did the third age end? Gondor said it was the fall of Sauron. the Shire disagreed. They said it's when Elrond sailed to the west. So then you get two different calendars that are similar but not exactly the same. You get the Shire reckoning and the Gondor reckoning separating from each other, and everybody's sort of counting out time differently at that point. Even though they have the same years, they have different months, they have different holidays. It's everybody just looking at the concept of time in their own fashion. And like I said, it's whoever makes the calendar decides what the ages are. Now, the Silmarillion is obviously an elvish perspective, and I'm glad you said that. So the elvish perspective of an age, it could also mean the age of an elf from birth to maturity, and that would be even shorter.
That's going to be 15 years times
Well, no,
9.582.
about 100 years for maturity.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's
but
I know what it is.
yeah.
Hold on.
But anyway, Sid has something to say. Go ahead, Sid.
There are two things that I'm writing about these days that are both key to what you're saying. One is that for Tolkien, every end is a beginning. As important as the destruction of Sauron and the Ring is at the end of the Third Age, the survival of Aragorn and Arwen and Faramir and Éowyn and the Shire, the beginnings are as important, especially to Gandalf, who was the
We're segueing. We're segueing, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Wait. Let me just cut in because you said new beginnings, and I think that's super, super wonderful. Because then you'd start to wonder, well, why does the Shire say it's when Elrond sailed? What do they care about that? Because it's when Frodo sailed.
I got you. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I'm trying to say something here, John.
But go ahead.
And people mark times by what is important to them. And so, Elrond sailed, and that's what they thought of it as in Gondor, from what they thought of it in the Shire, which is when Frodo sailed.
Yeah.
And it was the end of an age for the Shire and the beginning of an age. Because now Sam is mayor. They have the only Malorn tree in that part of the world, and and nobody gets into the Shire unless they want them to. And Sam builds the Underhill extension of the Shire, the first change in the lands of the Shire, the lands of the hobbits, and that's the huge event for them. And I was writing about this today in relation to the Civil War. When did slavery end? The answer is there are at least 4 different dates.
A period of about 80 years, yeah.
No, I'm talking about legal slavery of blacks. It was over about 4 years from the Emancipation Proclamation. And we think Juneteenth Day in Texas was the last. No, Delaware still had slaves for another few months. And so we get it wrong. We don't know what's going on. And we remember things that turned out to be false and call them history. That's part of the age-ending element of every single age, because we don't know what we're doing at the beginnings of things.
And John, I need to have a little bit of time when you're done to talk about entropic time, which is a different. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we still have like 4 minutes here.
Okay, give me a second then. Oh, okay.
Well, hold on. Let me respond to Sid here. And that's what it really comes down to, is that when we think of the perspective of say the Valar, right? What is important to them? Right? Why do they, because they have their own system that nobody understands except for, like Feanor and Tolkien, and Feanor ain't telling you anything. So you have to go by what Tolkien says, and he keeps changing his mind, you know what I mean? He's going by what Bilbo wrote down and all this stuff, and you said something very astute, which is we remember things wrong and then call them history, and that accounts for every single time that Tolkien changed his mind about anything regarding the history of his fictional world.
And he himself says that when he says, all we have is our best understanding of what Bilbo and Frodo thought the elves were saying and thinking, and this is why we're talking about Morgoth. But there's another point here where, as we dive into this, I think we can make a lot of headway into remembering that the central event, the map for every age, is the Ainulin Dali. And for those who experienced the Ainulin Dali and stayed to the good, they call an age ending when the Eucharistry, the victory of light over darkness, happens. And that's going to be the thorough fall. I'm not saying death necessarily, because it wasn't always, but the thorough fall of the apparent evil that was going to win. And I think that's burned into their consciousness because they lived the Ainulin Dali. And this is where it gets really weird. I think the same is true, but also forgotten and denied by Morgoth and Sauron. And you can really make a lot of sense of both Morgoth and Sauron if you think of them as knowing they're going to lose because they were at the Ainulin Dali too. So they know the tune that's being played, and they know it ends in their destruction, and they're repressing it. Makes a lot of sense how Sauron fought and so forth.
Let me
go ahead, Matt.
Say something real quick to support what he's saying real quick. Tolkien has a little bit of an aspect, a strong aspect actually in a lot of ways, to Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the cosmic balance of the cosmos is in this waxing and waning of light and darkness, represented by the crescent moon, which the Muslim faith has still got with them, held over from the Zoroastrian tradition. And in the Muslim faith, it's supposed to remind us that there's this cosmic struggle between light and darkness in our souls that we have to fight to be pure and fight to be good. But it's a holdover from Zoroastrianism. That's fine. It's basically harmonic. That's fine. But what's interesting about what he's saying is that only at the times that light overcomes dark in this cosmic cycle, like in our moon phases, is the calendar being changed, and that's so Tolkien-esque. It's so beautifully Tolkien.
I'm gonna
and
agree with you, and also I'm gonna just stop the timer because we're at the end of it. We'll just wrap up in a moment. I also just want to say, and if you want to read about Tolkien and the teachings of Zoroaster, go to Matt's page. He writes a lot about it. He wrote an article pretty recently about it, but also a much longer one quite a while back that's also really illuminating about Zoroaster's teachings and the relation to Bombadil and Ungoliant. But you just said something about I'm sorry, could you just repeat the last sentence, the last little bit of what you said?
It's so Tolkien-esque to look at the cosmic harmonies in good defeating and
I got it. It was about the crescent moon thing and light and like you said, like the phases of the moon, and that's Tilion and Arien as well, with the last the children of the two trees, the creations of Yavanna, pure nature, Tilion who nobody could reach, and Arien who burned Morgoth, two of the most powerful beings in the universe. And then at least as far as Maya are concerned. And then you mentioned the crescent moon and the symbology. Okay, earlier I said Aemon, the continent that makes up the majority of the Undying Lands, is kind of shaped like a banana. It's also kind of like a crescent moon as well.
It's actually more like a crescent than a banana.
Yeah, I mean, or sometimes I say it's like a boomerang. Like, it's kind of like all of those things, but it is a crescent shape. And is that on purpose? Maybe not. But Tolkien did very few things. Sometimes he would do something and then realize, wow, that really lines up. I'm going to roll with it. Like Numenor, which was created for a science fiction story called The Lost Road, and it was based off of Atlantis. And then he realized, whoa, if I, Quenize it, it becomes Atalanta. That's great. I didn't even think of that until later.
I have found that these are not accidental. Yeah. There are a lot of there's so many of these things that are just seem like they're not accidental. Of all the shapes to use, a crescent. Really?
And Sid, go ahead and say something while I bring out the atlas here of Middle Earth.
My deep study is, how did Tolkien think? And there's no question that his unconscious imagination was working very similarly to his conscious imagination, but going much deeper. And so that he embodied an active, creative mind beyond his own understanding, way beyond his own understanding. And this is why we have in Leaf by Niggle, which John mentioned earlier, a vast, a single pure, well-drawn leaf, which I think is The Lord of the Rings, a vague picture of a tree which he could finish, which I think is the Silmarillion,
or
and then
the
we go on.
legendarium as a whole being everything.
Well, yeah, but then it's land of that he creates after his death, where the tree is one small part of the whole.
Now let's show this here, because this is only the top hemisphere of the world here, but you can see Aemon represented as a crescent there, you know, and that's just sort of amazing how it goes into that symbology. And Tolkien never specifically talked about Zoroaster, but you know, from Matt's writings, and I helped Matt with his original article about it and how it relates to Bombadil and Ungoliant and the unknown forces of yin and yang. But we think that, like, he must have known something of it.
Yeah.
It's just too much that all falls into place when you look at this. And people, you know, people on Quora can be just people in general can be very willfully ignorant, and they'll say, but he was a Catholic. And it's like, so what? You can be a Catholic and have interests in other religions and studying them and learning from them. That's absolutely, you know, like Matt's a Catholic. You know what I mean? He's interested in Zoroastrianism. I mean,
when you go into the deep struggle in Catholicism and a lot of religions, the Judeo-Christian religion and the Muslim faith as well, and Zoroastrianism, the Venn touches in the middle at the struggle between good and evil, period.
Yeah.
And that is why it's not anti-Christian to be talking about the kind of things that Tolkien is talking about, which is that deep struggle, the struggle between good and evil, and where are you going to fit into it? Are you going to act, or are you not going to do anything about it?
Okay. Well, that was even more productive than I thought it was going to be, especially since I just sort of like came up with this idea this morning. I was just like, what am I going to talk about? And I just like realized I have a lot of answers recently about time. You know what I mean? So let's talk about that, because I'm sure Matt and
John,
Sid will have very interesting things to say.
Can I steal 20 seconds to say what I was going to say?
Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, I thought you already did, but go ahead.
No, it came from Sid. He does what he does. He gets me thinking about things. And there was one other thing that's really interesting, and that is this. I'm just gonna lay it out there, and people can look it up on their own. But Círdan is 11,400 years old,
approximately.
And divided by, and so we're talking about entropic decay and entropic time, which you started off in the segment. And I've written articles about this as well. But it's all cited and everything. But 11,400 divided by 200 comes out to his age stated in the notes and appendices about his age appearing to be in his late 50s. And 11,400 divided by 200 comes out to 57. Now, if you take as a test, if you take to see if it's accurate, if you take Legolas at 3,200 years old, which is about pretty close, and you divide that by 200, he comes out to be about 16 years old. And he is described as being a young prince who is just in his, not adolescence, but in his basically
young adulthood.
His young teen years.
I mean, you know, that's the problem though with that, is that like Círdan and Legolas, we don't have birth dates, so we have to just really approximate with them.
Well, I might be off by, it might be 199.2, but it's in that range. It's it's very close to 200 is my point.
We do have to understand, and I highly recommend for anybody that's interested in the lifespans of elves and how it all works, go get the book The Nature of Middle-earth. It's incredibly illuminating. It's the most recent Tolkien book to come out. Okay.
Yep. I want to put in one last thought.
Go ahead.
Closing, which is, John, and I'll help you do this. Let's get a whole lot of useful links and creative links into the notes when we put up this video.
Yep. Okay.
So people can kinds of creativity and analytics and great speculation. Thank you.
And I want to add one other thing. Sorry, John. For those of you who are listening, we already, we as lore masters, we do this on our hobby and as our thing we do. But it's also valuable, I think, to talk about, what part of the Lost Tales do we give credence to and not, and why? What overwrites and doesn't overwrite? What is harmonic and what is not harmonic? What are the methods we use to actually determine what's high likelihood, strong likelihood of being developed canon as opposed to just canon? And maybe we should have a segment on teaching kind of people maybe how this kind of thing is done, because it is not a science, it's a real art, and a lot of people don't really understand how to do it. It's just a thought. I'm just throwing that out there in the wind.
I mean, my take is there is no canon, but
yeah, and my take is whatever makes your heart sing, and that's why the fan fiction type creativity of creating the story, our own story, is the end of every story that Tolkien wrote, and he said that. So
I mean, I think
agree.
The Book of Lost Tales is so wonderful. You read it and people say, "Wow, it's not canon." It's like, it doesn't have to be. It's a wonderful story and you should read it. It's something Tolkien wrote, and there's some things in there that are just like really well thought out ideas that he changed his mind on them, but still, it's about the story. This is fiction and this is literature and this is what we're doing, is studying this. I have always pushed, and I will continue to push, for treating the Legendarium like we treat Arthurian legend, where there isn't one accepted version of it that is the correct one. It's just like what Sid said, whatever makes your heart sing, whatever sparks joy.
And then there's people like me who are like, how exactly tall is a Numenorian?
But that's fine. That's fine. That's great, and that's wonderful in its own way, but we have to give Sid his section now. Sid, 2 minutes. Are you ready?
I know. Give me 1 second to pull it out. And I'll just say, guys, we're coming down to Middle Earth for what I'm doing. Yep. It'll be far less abstract.
Yeah, we're not. We were spending time in Numenor, and then we were spending time in just sort of the cosmos. But now we're going to spend some time in Middle Earth, which is familiar.
Ready?
Familiar.
I'm ready, Sid.
Give me a minute. My computer is not.
Go ahead. No, it's okay. Don't worry. Like I said, you wanted to go earlier because you were, maybe tired, but you seem to be full of beans today.
Yeah.
That must have been a heck of a nap.
It was. Okay. At least found the document. I can't bring it up on screen yet.
And this, by the way, for those of you watching at home, this is, well, everybody's watching at home. I don't know, unless you're at McDonald's or something. This is what I was talking about earlier about Sid glowing.
Yeah. It's a reflected light, unfortunately, from my computer.
One of my moderators, Dylan, just said would come back to us now with the turn of the tide for Mr. Kemp's section.
Your teeth are gorgeous, by the way.
He's got the light of the Valar in him right now.
Yeah.
It's you know what? Wait, hold on. Did you swallow a Silmaril?
You caught me. No, actually, I died and got resurrected by.
Oh, okay.
And turned bright white. John, I have timed this to 2 minutes. If it's 2 minutes and 5 seconds, you don't need to shut me down. I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
Are we ready?
Go ahead.
So, Matt, John, and all of our listeners, I invite you to a deep dive into understanding Gandalf's purpose, all that he did, and why he did it the way he did it. Tonight is the first of a few months for this exploration. I hope you all get to know Gandalf and know what he speaks to you personally. Gandalf was the steward of the free peoples of Middle-earth, guiding us to empower and lead ourselves. As he said to Denethor, "The rule of no realm is mine, neither Gondor nor any other, great or small, but all worthy things that are in peril as the world now stands, those are in my care. And for my part, I shall not wholly fail of my task, though Gondor should perish, if anything passes through this night that can still grow fair or bear fruit and flower in days to come. For I also am a steward. Did you not know? And with that, he turned and strode from the hall with Pippin running at his side. This creates two images for me, and I'm going to want you to add to these images, everybody, listeners included, and I'm going to give you a question to answer, and then we'll roll. When Gandalf found the sapling of the white tree and gave it to Aragorn, he found a living thing that would bear fruit and made sure it would do so into the Fourth Age. But what if Sauron had won the war, gotten the ring, wiped out everything? I picture Gandalf finding that thorn bush that Sam and Frodo fell into with foot-long thorns that hurt like heck, but it saved their lives. And I see him bending over angelically over that thorn for an entire age as the only thing that might bear fruit eventually, and keeping it alive. Come up with images like that starting in about 10 seconds. And one more. John, Matt, and all of our listeners, please comment. What are the crucial moments when heroes of the free peoples stepped in and did what Gandalf might have done? So those are the two questions. What images does that quote bring to you? And what times did people in the books do things that people thought, either the people in the novel or we ourselves, say, well, why didn't Gandalf just do this? Well, when did the free peoples of Middle-earth take over and do it for themselves? I leave it all to you to start talking and coming up with stuff.
Okay.
And if you run dry, I've got more questions.
All right. So I'm going to set us up for the half hour here, and that's going. Did you know? I don't know if you were aware of this, Sid, but did you know that they sell T-shirts that say, like, what would Gandalf do? This is what you made me think of there. It's sort of like the what would Jesus do, but it has Gandalf on. It says WWGD. So, like, when you said a moment where a character does what Gandalf would have done, there's one big one. There's a lot of them, but there's one really big one, and it's Frodo. It's Frodo not only choosing to not kill Gollum, but not to leave him where he might die. To untie him and allow him to have his freedom of movement and not to be burned by the elvish rope from Lothlorien. And knowing that this creature means him harm and might attack him and might try to kill him, but finally understanding the words of Gandalf from earlier in the story, I pity Gollum. Because the first time that Gandalf said, I pity Gollum, Frodo didn't understand it. And he said, how could you pity him? I don't. And he says, you have not seen him. And this is where Tolkien does something that he almost never does, and he uses a flashback to bring us back to an earlier scene. He almost never does that. So this is an incredibly important moment in The Lord of the Rings where that portion is repeated, and then he says to Frodo, I understand now. I pity him, for I have seen him. And John, if he didn't do that, it's all lost. I mean, Gollum destroyed the ring.
John, this is one of those nights where I just want to give you a hug.
Well, you give each other like a virtual hug, right?
Dude, I'm just gonna hug you right now.
There you
and
go.
Say, John, that's so good. And I want to say that the giving of free choice and free will to Gollum is the same choice that Arrow gives everyone in free choice and free will, knowing that evil might be one of the choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Frodo in that moment is acting from the spirit of openness and forgiveness, even in the hope that good things will be chosen and not evil things will be chosen. Now that doesn't matter. Yeah. That doesn't mean that obviously it came out the way that Frodo wanted to in the end, because he had his own troubles with the ring.
I mean, he lost a finger. It was
Sam
rough.
with Nar and all that.
Yeah.
But the harnessing of that right there you just spoke to, which is this choice that I'm going to let him be free and choose, even though this might even lead to my own demise and the end of the world. Because if he's killed and Gollum takes the ring back, Sauron's going to get the ring again in the end, probably. So he's taking a
Or
huge
even if he
risk.
doesn't, the
Yeah,
ring doesn't get destroyed, and
the ring doesn't
Sauron
get
wins.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Exactly, and he fails. He is gambling everything on that free choice.
Now, I see,
Everything.
Sid, you have your hand up, but I wanted to add another thought, and there's two things coming in from the chat, so just hold on to that for a moment. The other thought, and this is almost the same thing, so I'm going to be briefer, is the same choice that Theoden made to allow Wormtongue to not only leave, but even offered him a horse if he wanted it after he had betrayed him. Like you said, giving him his free will, even if he may choose evil things. And then who ends Saruman? It's Grima.
Yeah.
Now there's some things coming in from the chat. Dylan here points out the Free Peoples winning the war against the Witch King is an example, and Laurel gives a really good example. This one's very close to my heart as well. Is Faramir aiding Frodo and Sam in spite of the command that has been given to him? Because
Yep,
Gandalf certainly knew when to go rogue, because he did so against Saruman several times, even before he knew that Saruman had fallen. He knew when to go rogue, and so did Faramir. Okay, Sid, go ahead.
I want to support all of these. In relation to what you said, John, there are only 2 words in the whole book that have unexpected capitalization, and they do every time. And those words are pity and mercy.
Yeah.
They are capitalized as literally holy words. And that reinforces what we're saying about what Frodo learned and from Gandalf and then enacted. Also, Gandalf himself did it with both Saruman and Sauron. I encourage everyone to go back and read the
Mouth of Sauron part.
Yeah, the back and forth.
I knew it. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was doing. The parley with the mouth of Sauron, and consider that Gandalf is being utterly sincere in saying, all you got to do is walk out of Mordor and you can do whatever you want.
He also told Saruman that if he repented, he would be free to go wherever he would, even to Mordor.
And I think, and why? Because if everyone does that, then justice is done at the end of the story. As you pointed out, Grima, because he was given a horse and raced back to Saruman, gets utterly enslaved by Saruman in his mind and breaks free and ends Saruman's life.
And not only that, but delivered the Palantir onto essentially onto Pippin and Aragorn.
Yeah, exactly. So all of these, if everyone's allowed to do their best or worst, whichever it is, all the way to the end, the music resolves itself. It's the Ainulindalli with small hands doing unexpected things that leads to the failure of the Nebin motif, the dark power trying to control the world forever.
I got another one for you, and this is one that Gandalf even said as much. Bilbo giving the Arkenstone to Bard and Thranduil.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know Gandalf was nearby. He gave it to them, and then, they even said, why don't you stay with us? And he says, I can't abandon my friends. Even though he's technically betraying Thorin, he can't abandon him, and he has to go back. And then he meets Gandalf, and he basically gives him the "you did good, kid" sort of speech there.
I have one when you guys are ready.
We're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, mine is just downright packed with dynamite. I love it. When Gandalf meets the Balrog at the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, not only he's a Maya, he can get himself up from that ledge. He could, but he decides that he is going to take the Balrog out.
He's putting the quest in Aragorn's hands. He's
Yeah,
putting
he's
his
saying,
faith
look,
in someone else.
yeah, he is putting his faith in someone else,
Yeah.
and that is going to be the way it has to go because he's not trying to escape with them anymore. He, at that point, has decided the Balrog has to be taken out, and why? Well, this is my theory, and I think I got some good grounds for this. The orcs don't like to be out. Those kinds of orcs from that type of mountain don't like to be out in the daylight. That was something that was written in the Lord of the Rings. Um, but the Balrog has absolutely no trouble walking around in daylight. He knows the way out of that place as quick as anybody. There isn't anybody out uh, in the Fellowship that's going to escape the Balrog. They're going to be hunted down day or night. Doesn't really matter. The
Yeah.
Balrog has no fear of going into Lorien if he needs to go get it. And there was every reason to believe that there was some kind of ping or signal or whatever coming from the ring, coming into Moria, because uh, the the ring can be felt by Sauron when it's being used.
Hey,
And I think that the Balrog could feel or sense when he got close to it
hey, Matt.
that there was something that smelled like Sauron in the air as they were going,
Yeah.
in that particular
Wait,
area
before
of
we
the.
get too deep into this, Matt, I just want to point out that Sid's asking for moments where characters do something that Gandalf would do, and now you're
Oh,
giving us
right.
something that Gandalf did.
Okay. Well, what I'm
I was
well,
just like,
that's
wait a
because
minute. It didn't even hit me, and I was like, wait a minute. We're talking about Gandalf himself now.
I'm sorry. I'm going someplace with
Okay,
this.
okay, all right.
We got more
It's
faith.
I wanted to make
More faith.
sure. I wanted to make sure.
More faith from my brethren. So he goes after him, knowing he's got to take them out because the Balrog can assume his form, and he's gonna not be killed from this fall probably, and because Gandalf wasn't, therefore neither was
Yeah.
he. So he was gonna find his way out, find the Fellowship, find the ring, and it's gonna be all over with. He's deciding he is going to have to take this demon out by himself, and that is a great act of courage. Now, the one that I feel that came to my mind was after Aragorn has become King Elessar. Um, he does an interesting thing to me, and that is he doesn't just leave the status quo as it is. He actually goes on quite a large campaign to find every orc he can to kill him.
That was more the dwarves doing that. Aragorn
No,
didn't do
he was
that.
part of it. He was part of it.
That's
And
not what.
yes, the dwarves reclaimed their halls. Yeah, that is also true. You're not wrong.
No, but
That's
I'm
also
saying
true.
that like Aragorn also stated that any of the enemies of Gondor could find shelter in Mordor and not be harassed.
Except in these particular areas, along with what the dwarves did, Aragorn did go out to purge them in the outer lands that were west of Mordor. And the way it struck me was that yes, the dwarves are doing this, but it was like, look, this is the time to try to erase as much of Morgoth's worst crime against Eru. Tolkien said it was the worst crime, which was the corruption and the mutilation of the elves to become orcs. And I just felt that that this was an act of I've got to go out and do this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. It's ugly, and it's all peaceful now. I can stay home with Arwen, Queen Arwen now, and I can eat muffins and I can chill. Have a cigar. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He does that for a couple of years, but not for very long, and goes out and does the rest of this. And so I just wanted to say I think there was that moment of just I've got to handle the tough stuff now.
Dutch in the chat brings up a point, and I was going to bring up this point as well because it's correct. Sauron doesn't feel when the ring is being used. That only happens when it's used at Sammath Naur. It's used Warren, Gollum, Bilbo, Isildur, everybody else way before that. He doesn't feel that. I'm not saying that the Balrog didn't sense, like what you said, a little whiff of Sauron in the air, but that was just a statement that's not exactly correct. Sid?
He felt it was being used at
the seed of seeing.
Yeah.
That's different though, because that's not the only time Frodo put on the ring. He put on the ring at the seed of seeing. That's,
There's passages that very clearly says that when he puts it on, he feels like he's being examined, and that Sauron is looking at him when he puts on the ring. So that is not true.
that only happened at the seed of seeing.
Okay. Anyway, that
Sid, we got to go to Sid.
Okay. Several things. One, I believe that the Balrog first sensed the ring and created the storm at the top of Caradhras to force them into Moria. So he wanted this, he didn't know what it was, but he wanted this evil thing. And I believe there's textual evidence for that. But in any case,
and if you search on my channel for the word Caradhras, you'll find the discussion that the three of us had about that very topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you're absolutely right. He Gandalf the Grey saw he had to destroy the Balrog.
Yeah.
He knew he would die doing it because he knew the story of Glorfindel. That's the only way to kill the greater Balrogs. It was a great being sacrifices his own life. And actually, it's even deeper than, okay, well, it's off to Aragorn now. Tolkien writes this explicitly in his letters. He was giving up any hope of the quest succeeding. He truly believed, I've got to kill the Balrog, there's no choice, but I won't be there for the quest. I'm failing my job. And he felt that utterly. And it is because he was even willing to surrender his purpose and destiny. That was why he was worthy of being reincarnated, Tolkien's word, and one he doesn't use very often, to be Gandalf the White. And returned for a short time to finish his job. That utterly selfless giving up of even everything good we might do, and say, hey, this is in God's hands, in the most literal way, is what earns one the right to go through a salvation even beyond death. And Tolkien was explicit with that in his letters.
So let's circle back to the central theme, though, of characters acting in a way that, doing basically what Gandalf would have done in that position. I would like to circle back to that. And I think that, like, we don't necessarily need to just think of the Lord of the Rings, and we don't necessarily need to just think of even the Legendarium. I think that at several points in his life, Tolkien did what Gandalf would have done. Whether it was going into the army when everybody in his family was telling him, you don't have to do this, why would you do that? And he felt a calling. He felt he had to. And then simple, goofy things, because we have to remember, Gandalf is not just Gandalf the Maya. He's also Gandalf the pilgrim who walks the land and makes friends with everybody. He's Gandalf who makes the fireworks. He's Gandalf that makes children smile. And I just think back to Tolkien sitting there, spending hours writing letters to his children from Father Christmas. Is a very Gandalf thing to do.
Or turning a ragdoll named Tom Bombadil that got flushed down the toilet
into a poem, and then becoming this character and everything,
Yeah. Absolutely. But I want to pick up on one thing Matt said. What was it? I've lost it. Aragorn in the Fourth Age. I think Aragorn, there's a phrase that the Fourth Age is the age of men. And it's a very puzzling phrase unless you read closely. Because there still were some elves left. There still were orcs. There still were some dwarves. There were hobbits. It was actually better, it would have been better named the age of the ascent of men. And it's pretty darn clear that by the end of the Fourth Age, the only sentient speaking beings that men are aware of are men. They no longer have the presence of anyone who can talk to them if the hobbits are still there, or a few elves are still there, they're deeply hidden. Most likely they've all gone to the west or died out. And Aragorn saw that that was his destiny, and he wanted to get rid of the evil of Morgoth, the inhuman eagle of Morgoth, as soon as he could, because he knew he wanted to lead the Fourth Age into what the Fourth Age was meant to be.
Well said. We still have like 12 minutes here. So anybody else have any like moments like that where somebody like does as Gandalf would have done?
Well,
and like
I want to point out one thing. You can interrupt me anytime you want, John, for anybody who's got comments. You know, in one sense, I'm half correct, and you guys are half correct. It didn't go into Mordor. That's correct. But the Morgul Vale was completely. He ordered the Morgul Vale to be completely rid of orcs, and he ordered the.
Well, that's because that's
the
Ithilien.
Rangers to go into the and he ordered the Rangers to go into the Misty Mountains and wipe out any of the orcs that were remaining. So there were some examples of him really going after what was needed to be wiped out. And that's what I was really getting at, related to Gandalf deciding he was going to actually have to get
that's
down
also
in the gutter.
Part of his kingly duty of keeping the roadways safe so that people can travel from place to place. Because, you know, without the Dark Lords, the orcs, you know, they don't just keep to themselves. They usually they start robbing people and waylaying them as they're moving around. And he wanted to, you know, this is like the first thing that a king has to worry about is, are people going to be able to travel around my kingdom and go where they would in peace? You know, and that is a very big deal, you know.
There's also the rebuilding of Gondor and Arnor as a single nation.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's all one. It's the realm of Elendil, you know.
Reunification. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I want to throw in one more wild card, though.
Go ahead.
Lobelia Sackville Baggins. Yeah. Didn't she do in the Lockholes exactly what Gandalf did on top of Sauron's Tower?
Yeah, she did a few. She did a few really Gandalfish things. I mean, giving Frodo his home back after he had sold it to her quite fairly is one such thing, and making sure that all of her accumulated wealth, because she was not exactly a poor hobbit, she had plenty of wealth, that would go to helping the needy. Was a big thing too in reconstruction of the Shire, and also just not caring that she's this little old lady up against these very strange men. She attacked them with an umbrella. She didn't want to hear any of that nonsense. She's just like, you know, I don't want nobody effing with me in these streets. Just wham, wham, you know, and she gets locked up like that, you know. That, I mean, she had a few fiery sort of Gandalf moments, because, you know, Sam. Let's talk about Sam. You know, is Sam carrying Frodo? You know, that's just. And then when Sam couldn't carry Frodo anymore, Frodo saying, "I'll crawl." This is very much like the passage that you read. Even if there's nothing left in the world, as long as there's something that I think might bear fruit or might be good, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep going. So that, you know, both Frodo and Sam having their moments there. Say that again, Sid. You cut up a little there.
Anything else coming in from the comments? If not, hey, you guys out there.
Dylan has something here. I feel one of the Blue Wizards. I feel one of the Blue Wizards chose as Gandalf would have done, mayhap in showing some success in circumventing Sauron in the east or the south. I don't know if that's so much a Gandalf move or if they were just doing what they went there to do. I mean, they were instrumental in, you know, the war in the north, especially. But we just don't know about the Blue Wizards enough to make a determination there, I think, because we don't know about their personalities so much. Tolkien never really he wrote about what their names were and where they went, but we don't know what they were like as characters. Other than that they were very close to each other. Sid, go ahead.
He did say one other thing that's often misunderstood. He spoke of them creating cults.
Cults of magic.
But
yeah,
right, but no more than that. In Catholic terms, a saint's cult is a totally positive thing.
Yeah.
We've taken the word to be cult is always bad. No, Saint Francis,
St. Francis, yeah.
all of them created cults. They were totally good things, and the belief is it's possible that each of the blue wizards, one in the east and one in the south, created worship cults to Eru. Now, they were worshiping the blue wizard, but Tolkien says if you worship one of the Valar or one of the Maiar, because that's all you know, your worship is passed on to Eru, and you're doing a good thing. And for all we know, the reason that Sauron got only 100,000 and not 200,000 Easterlings was because a blue wizard's good cult weakened his authority in the east. So the blue wizards could have been doing a very big good thing. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. Another character that I want to bring up is Gimli. And his defense of Galadriel when Éomer speaks in we'll say just an ignorant way, and Éomer is often thought of as this brash, sort of arrogant character, and I think that's just because of the way he was portrayed in the films. He's not like that. As a matter of fact, he immediately apologizes to Gimli when he realizes that he has really angered him. But I think that just the line that "I will teach you the art of gentle speech" read to me like something that Gandalf would have said. And the sort of, I always took this as humorous. Some people might think that it's serious. But, and WT in the chat pointing out that cult is the root word of cultivate, which is and culture, so it's not always a negative thing. Just going back to what you said. But Éomer has this sort of Damocles head, hanging over his head, maybe more like the axe of Damocles, we'll say, because he has been told that if he ever sees Galadriel and does not declare her to be the most beautiful woman in all of Middle-earth, that Gimli's going to go get his axe and teach him a lesson. And so, he calls him forth and tells him, I've seen Galadriel and I don't think she's the most beautiful woman in all of Middle-earth, and I have to tell you that. And he even asks him, do you have your axe with you? And of course he didn't because he was at dinner. But he's immediately and says, I better get my axe. And I've always thought, they're friends now. Éomer's the king. He's not really going to attack him. And I think that was a little bit of that sort of the sort of humor that we see from a character like him. But also the understanding that comes afterwards when he says, the reason I cannot say that Galadriel is the most beautiful woman in all of Middle-earth is because I think Arwen is more beautiful than her. And Gimli they come to this understanding that they don't have to agree with each other. And we see this in Gandalf's temperament a lot. He can get pretty angry. He can get very fiery. He could say things that he later regrets, or even sometimes do things that he later regrets, or that he felt was distasteful, like threatening Gollum with fire was something that he felt was very distasteful, but also necessary. But anyway, a lot of times Gandalf is the mediator who says, look, we might not agree on everything, but we've got bigger fish to fry right now. We have to come together and do what's really important there. So, hi, Deb.
The more I listen to this segment, I shouldn't say this out loud because we already know this, but the more I think about it, the more that Ian McKellen is just absolutely brilliant.
Agreed.
He absolutely captured it so honestly. Even if I wasn't a fan of Lord of the Rings, let's just say that for an actor to come in and be able to do something this complicated for 3 movies for this kind of character,
6 movies.
I'm sorry, yes, 6 movies, and for this kind of character,
going on 7.
I don't even care what genre you're in. It is crazy skills.
He is one of the greatest living actors of our time.
Agreed.
There we go.
I want to come back though to Gimli. What Gimli said exactly was a very Gandalf-like thing to say. Oh, okay, you chose Arwen. I love the morning.
You love the
of the
night,
evening.
yeah.
We cannot disagree. But then you step back and you say, wait, grandma and grandkid.
Yeah, I don't think Éomer knows that.
No.
But imagine if
You're-
imagine if that's what Gimli said. That's her granddaughter, you know.
Yeah.
Still, she's 3,000 years old and also Aragorn's wife, so you should be careful. Hey, look, Éomer was not the only character to develop a bit of a crush on Arwen. Frodo definitely was quite smitten himself, so. And he was smitten with and Goldberry as well, so. That's a big thing.
I think Frodo is probably picking a little bit straight from Tolkien, who loved all these women
Yeah.
and always thought that men should marry up, as he felt he did.
Though, I want to say, this is not the topic, but you say most of the men in the Legendarium do, in fact, marry up. But I can tell you there is one example that I think is truly a marriage of equals, and that's Éowyn and Faramir.
Agreed. And the elevation there is from steward and sister of a king to prince and princess of Ithilien. And that's
one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite developments of that book. It
really is. It's so good.
Is that they get Ithilien? That's so cool.
Yeah, that's so good. Especially that's the most beautiful part of Gondor, but also it's a big challenge because that's where the Morgul Vale is, and it's just really messy at that moment. So it creates challenges for them. So it's Aragorn not only rewarding them, but also giving them a problem to solve. And oh my God, we're out of time. Okay.
But what a beautiful thing to give them that particular principalship.
Principality was the word you're looking for,
right? Principality, right? Who resisted the ring, and the other one stood up to the Witch King. Doesn't get any better than that.
Okay, coming in from the chat, a question for all three of us. What is our favorite marriage in all of the Legendarium? Now, I know I just mentioned Éowyn and Faramir as being a marriage of equals. However, my favorite would be Turinidril. The birth of a star, the glory of the elves and the men coming together. It's all really beautiful. The fall of Gondolin is one of the most beautiful and tragic stories he ever wrote. Least favorite, the children of Húrin. It's a family tree that didn't branch. But what do you guys think? What's your favorite marriage in all the Legendarium?
I'll go last, Matt.
Is it Tom and Goldberry? Or that's a good one, though.
Oh, I have three, and they're all different. That's why. But I'm going to name them anyway. I'm not going to say one. Because there's two different. It's like choosing,
look,
different kinds of scotches.
Dylan might be a moderator, but he doesn't have a gun to your head. You don't have to just name one.
Well, I'm going to say, in order of coolness, I'm going to say Tom and Goldberry. Second, I'm going to say Beren and Luthien. And third, I have to say Thingol and Melian, because Melian is so crazy cool.
I think that Thingol and Melian share the most romantic moment in all of the Legendarium.
Yeah.
And Beren and Luthien were like the ultimate action couple, so I definitely feel both of those. And also, who's happier in marriage than Tom and Goldberry?
No, nobody. I mean, nothing can touch them. It's so great. But the idea of falling in love with a Maya who's as pretty as the way she is described by Tolkien. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that when they first touched hands, they couldn't move for centuries. They were so awestruck by each other. That's just wild. Cool. Sid, we got to hear from you.
I can't. My mind doesn't work in comparisons. I like to glory in each of the different marriages, but you guys left one out.
Let's hear it.
Sam and Rosie.
I almost said that. That's probably my second choice is Sam and Rosie, just because it's they don't talk about it at the beginning of the book, but they kind of tell you that they've been dating for a while. And it's not like the movie where he could never talk to her and then he had to pluck up his courage and all that. They were already an item. And then he disappears for like over a year and she has no idea where he's gone. And then he shows up riding a horse with, you know, his master and then these two aristocrats. And suddenly they're freeing the Shire. And she's sort of like, where have you been? And he's like, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you to marry me, but I had to go save the world.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
and it is a World War I story.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Sam and Rosie was. I almost said it. I wanted to go with Tura and Idril just because of it, like God intervening and making him immortal is such an amazing thing, and just so that they wouldn't be sundered.
Doesn't every man want to be gone for a few days and come back and say, "Honey, don't get so upset. I was out there saving the world."
Yeah. Yeah, but I also love that, and then she's like, "Oh, well, so you had a good reason," because she was thinking if I ever see this guy again, I'm really gonna clobber him unless he has a really good reason. And it's like, I'm sorry, I was off with my master helping him destroy the One Ring. You know, oh well, that's a good reason. And she's like, I'll get back to you. I just gotta go and take care of this whole scouring business.
They're saying, okay, almost good enough.
I mean, I guess the only thing that would be, okay, I'll give you a tragic one though. Like a marriage that didn't happen. There's two of them that are really tragic. One was Finduilas and Gwyndor, and the other being Finduilas and Turin. I mean, she had no luck.
Yeah. And there's another one which was a lasting marriage, but tragic all the way through. You'll help me with the name, John.
Is it Arendis and Eldarion?
Yeah, Eldarion and Arendis.
He never should have married. He was like Boromir. He shouldn't have been married. He was doing it just out of duty.
I know. Speaking as someone who is married to someone where for 40 years and we still don't understand one another. I'm going to say there's something heroic as well as tragic in a romance of two people who see the world so differently.
Matt not our Matt, but Matt in the chat just gave us one that's worse than Arendis and Eldarion, worse than Turin and Morwen. Not Morwen. Morwen was his mother. Turin and his sister Nienor. Pharazôn and Miriel, that's got to be the worst marriage in the whole Legendarium.
Yeah, certainly didn't end well.
That's got to be the worst. I mean, she didn't want no part. She didn't want no part of it. It was just a political move. It was, which is exactly the opposite of how. We're almost doing a fourth topic here. That's the opposite of how Tolkien views marriage. That's anathema to him. The idea that you would get married just for politics.
Yeah,
he hated that.
So, to come back on a cheerful note, I have at least 2, probably 3 more months on Gandalf.
Okay. Oh, so it's going to be like the Shire thing, the Hobbit thing, rather. Wonderful. Matt, we have to talk about something before we end. I got my special episode last month, and Sid had the Carthus one last June. I would like to do yours in like either May or June, where we do the Beren and Luthien play that you've written. So we need it. Yeah, we need to like start nailing down dates of when do you want. First of all, we need the scripts. You need to send the scripts out.
My proposal is to send the scripts out this month.
Okay.
And my thought is to do a couple of read-throughs on the Thursday after each one of our shows with the group.
Okay, that could work. I mean, you'll have to get with Laurel, and at some point, the 4 of us will have to come on here so that I could make an alternate scene where it's all 4 of us on camera. I did talk to Laurel about the technicalities, and she's good to go on that. But I really want to do this play, and also we're going to have to do a full table read at some point. beforehand.
Describe to the audience what is going on. Also, I think they need to.
Yeah, so Matt has written or is in the process of finishing writing a Shakespearean style play based on Beren and Luthien, specifically the chapter of Beren and it is done. That's wonderful to hear. The chapter of Beren and Luthien from the Silmarillion, which will be performed live by us three as well as Laurel Callahan, who was in the chat earlier. I think she's still there because she said Sam and Rosie as well. For the marriage discussion. I really like that question, by the way. Who is that asked that? Hold on, let me go back. Was that Dylan? That was Dylan. Fantastic question. That was a really fun little, almost like fourth topic here. And we're going to perform it. Obviously, we needed a lady because we need somebody who's going to play Melian and who's going to play Luthien, of course. But Matt, I believe, has it all casted and everything for us to all play multiple roles. And we're going to do this. But yeah, we need to like just have a plan and do table reads and stuff so that we could really put on a really great production. And I'm also going to have to make a name logo for Laurel as well.
Yeah. We also have to channel Ian McKellen when we do this, so we do a job worthy of Matt's writing.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, he is one of my favorite actors of all time, which is why when we did our theoretical casting of The Lord of the Rings, I said he should play Iluvatar because that's the ultimate sort of challenging role right there. But yeah, so that's going to be sometime late spring or early summer. I'd like to shoot for May or June. But it could be July if it needs to be, but I'd like to shoot for somewhere around there.
Cool.
All right. So, Laurel's still there. So, yeah, Matt, just contact, Laurel and make sure that she's in a little bit. Get us all our scripts so we have all the pages and we know, like, what lines we need to do, and we can, maybe do a little practice at home before we do table reads.
I'll send it out with special letters that have been sealed.
It's essentially, I mean, we'll be on camera, but it's essentially going to be an audio play, which is something I've always wanted to do, sort of like a very Orson Welles-ish sort of situation, Let's we're certainly not rushing it, Dylan. This has been something that's been in the works for quite some time, actually. This is going back a ways. Let's switch scenes here. We're going to go.
By the way, the play is posted.
Where?
On Quora.
The whole thing? I thought you ran into the character limit.
I did, but I made a couple of non-obtrusive edits to make it, and it's posted.
Well, I still need a physical.
I know.
Something that I can hold on to.
It is online under Lore Master. As
what I would like you. And if this is too much work, just let me know. But what I would like is for each of us to get a copy where our parts are highlighted.
You are going to get that.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, guys, we're going to go. Wonderful. Oh, I'm moving things that I shouldn't be moving here. Wonderful time that I had today. And the chat is saying that it's one of our best episodes as well. So that's just, that came in earlier. We had a lot of fun. Schedule-wise, let's talk about this for YouTube. Next.
I just need to bow out, guys. Sorry.
Okay, so that's okay. You're not on camera, so you can go ahead and do that if you need to. It's just so, but actually, before you go, we'll work our way backwards. Then the next council meeting will be March the 5th. So
more Gandalf
from and me and Matt will have something different. Okay, so in next week, next Thursday night, the 12th, we'll return, and I'll be reading more of the Two Towers. Specifically, we're getting into now like where Frodo and Sam and Gollum and Faramir are going to have the whole, like, the Forbidden Pool and all that. That's where we're up to. So that's next week for my reading and analytical stream there. In 2 weeks, on the 19th, I'll be back playing that Two Towers game again. And that's like, here's the thing, guys. I talked about this in some of the videos. If you want to see it and you're not a channel member, be at the live. Because once it's over, it's going to be members only. And the reason that the the videos for the Two Towers video game will be members only is because I can't monetize them. I can't put ads on them. So unless I want to have, I had 12 copyright claims on the first one. And I don't want to go through 12 separate fights each time. So if you're not a member and you want to see it, make sure you're at the live. And then on the 5th, we have the Council of Tolkien. Now, if you're watching me on Twitch, you guys know I stream every day, so I'll be here tomorrow afternoon with Dragon Quest 2, HD 2D Remake, Saturday night, continuing, maybe even finishing Xenoblade Chronicles, Torn to the Golden Country. You guys know the basic schedule and how it all works. So, yeah. Let's go ahead. If you're watching on YouTube, the live is going to end. If you're watching on Twitch, we're going to raid somebody. I got to figure out why Reddit's AI thinks I'm a bot. I had to contact them. Let's raid. Oh, wow. I'm going to raid Scottish Maiden because she's playing A Plague Tale Innocence, which is a really interesting game about a plague of rats and all this stuff. So let's raid her.
Scottish Maiden.
That's her name. Yeah, her name's Alice, but her handle on Twitch is Scottish Maiden.
Do you know Alice?
Yeah, she's a friend of mine.
So she goes by Scottish Maiden?
That's her handle on Twitch, yeah.
That's so good. That's almost as good as Plum Bottom.
Every time I see Bonnie Bell, I tell her how much you like her name. All right. Okay, so for those of you in the Twitch chat, there's your raid code. Copy and paste it as we head into Scottish Maiden's chat. For those of you on YouTube, the live is going to end. I will see you guys next time. Here we go. Okay, live's over. Let me just make sure that I actually post the message.
Is that person's name Bonnie Bell Plum Bottom?
Yeah, it's Bonnie Bell Plumbottom. She did tell me that she was specifically going for a hobbitish sort of name.
Thank you for the raid. Thanks so much.
When I said